Hello, it is Saturday, December 26, 2015, and welcome to episode 14 of the Multifarious Man podcast, The Right Stuff. On this week's episode, I'm going to change the format a little bit. So instead of the typical what I'm reading, watching, listening to, and then the usual list of movies, books, or something that, that I'm really interested in that particular week, this week, I'm going to share with you an interview with published author K.F. Johnson. She's written the two novels Behind Closed Doors and Liar's Ball. And in fact, coming up on December 31st, she's releasing her third novel. It is called When I'm Bad, I'm Better. You can check her out at the website kfjohnsonbooks.com, where you can also get you can find links to order the first two books, or you can even see a sneak peek of the new book, When I'm Bad, I'm Better. You can also pre-order the book directly at Amazon.com. And with the show notes that go along with this episode, I'll include all links to her websites. So again, that's kfjohnsonbooks.com. She's also on Twitter at kfjohnsonbooks and Facebook at kfjohnsonauthor. And WordPress at kfjohnson.wordpress.com. So without further ado, when we return, I will let you hear the wonderful Skype interview that we had a few weeks back. You'll find that we talk about the books, the characters, writing style. I think you'll enjoy it. It was a really good time, and we're definitely going to have her on the show again at a future date. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Demon Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand. I'm the multifarious man.
Welcome back to the Multifarious Man podcast, episode 14, The Right Stuff. And as promised during the intro before the break, here now is my interview with author K.F. Johnson. All right, so today on the Multifarious Man podcast, it's my pleasure to introduce author K.F. Johnson to the show. Hello, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a little background, K.F. Johnson, and I'm reading this right from your biography that's in your books and your website. You were born and raised in Queens before relocating to Atlanta. Now, was the relocation just when you went to Spelman, or when you first went to college, or did you go down before?
Yeah, well, actually, funny enough, the only reason I even went to Spelman is when I was in high school. That's when A Different World was on.
Gotcha. Nope.
And I thought that idea of a black college was so great. Not that I'd never heard of black colleges, but I had never seen black college life portrayed like that. And someone told me that the backdrop for that was Spelman, like when they would show them walking across campus.
Yeah. And
I was like, really? So in my mind, Spelman was Hillman. So I applied for Spelman kind of based on that. And foolish as I was, I didn't realize it was an all-girls school.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
Got into it and went to visit and was like, oh, this is crazy. And then realized that Morehouse was right next door and Clark Atlanta was right there and Morris Brown was up the street, and loved it, and just ended up going to Spelman and, just ended up staying. I mean, I thought I was going to go back to New York. I used to say forever, I'm never staying down here. It's too country or whatever. But once I developed a life here and started making my own, I just stayed.
Okay. Well, based on that, so you've been in Atlanta or outside of New York for more than half your life now, if you think about it.
I know, right?
So
but
do
I
you
still claim New York.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So you still represent New York, and you can hang in both places. Okay, but still.
Yeah, my parents still live in the house that I grew up in, and everybody else, actually, my sisters, everyone still lives in New York. I'm the only one that doesn't.
Okay. Well, that's excellent. Now, it also says, so after you got your degree in psychology and later on got your master's degree in business. So my first question is, as a writer, what do you pull from, your college or your life experience? What did you use when you were developing the first book, Behind Closed Doors, and then the follow-up, Liar's Ball?
Well, actually, my minor was English, so I was writing a lot. I mean, I've been writing since I was little, but I took screenwriting classes and did a lot of had a lot of classes that required me to write, poetry or something like that. And so I learned a lot of skills in school from that, even though my major was psychology. That kind of helped. I used to want to be a forensic psychologist, so that was how that came up. And the way it kind of helps me now in writing is I'm really interested in the way people think. So that helps me to kind of go into the mindset of my character and kind of try to make them realistic that way.
Okay. So for anyone out there that hasn't read any of your books, so Behind Closed Doors, it's primarily about a brother and sister, Brian and Brenda,
Right.
who live in the Atlanta area.
Yeah, and pretty much most of my characters will probably be based in Atlanta just because that's the area that I'm familiar with, and they may or may not go back to New York or go to New York or go some places that I have been, but their main backgrounds will be somewhere that I'm familiar so that I can, try to make sure that I'm writing realistically.
Okay. Now, one thing that stands out, so the books are written in first person, so each chapter is written from the point of view of one of the main characters, so you switch back and forth, and so it's a
Right.
guy, it's a girl. So my question to you is, what do you find easier to write? Do you find it's easier to write for the female characters, for the male characters? Now, I've gotten different answers from different people. Sometimes it's just easier to write for the opposite sex because you can observe more. Sometimes people are more reserved when they're writing about, their own sex. So for you, like, how did you get into the mind of the different characters?
I think it was for me. It wasn't really the gender part that made it easier or not. Um, I like interesting characters, like people who have a bad side. Like to me, it's more fun to write like a J.R. Ewing type, character that people love to hate.
Okay, J.R. Ewing from Dallas.
Right.
Okay.
So for me, or I don't know, Lucius Lyons, like that type of character that people love to hate. So for me, just so happens that Brian is that character in Behind Closed Doors. And for me, he was more fun to write because I could make him do and say things that people would be shocked and appalled by, but he doesn't really care. You know what I mean?
Okay,
And I mean he was pulled from a plethora of different men that I've known, and funny enough, you know in certain stages in my life, the type of man I probably would have been if I was a man, and running into some of these silly females that are out here, I probably wouldn't be that nice of a man at certain stages in my life either.
Okay. That's interesting. Now, at any time when you were writing or developing the story, now, like, what's your method for putting the book together? Is it character first? Is it plot first? How are you keeping track of the different characters? Like, do you already know going in, okay, this is what's going to happen to this person, or, this is the point of view I want this scene to be?
Well, I would have to say that the way that I write now is very different than how I wrote the first book. Because initially, when I wrote Behind Closed Doors, that took me like 10 years. And that was because I kept changing the character names, changing the plots. And I didn't even really have an end goal at the time because I was not writing to be an author. I was just writing because I like to write. And it wasn't until I was turning 40 in 2012, and I started thinking back and saying, what things that I wanted to accomplish but didn't. You start reflecting on what things you want to do or where you're going in your future. And I was like, I've had this book all this time and I never finished it. So I just finished it, and I decided, well, I have a lot of friends. I know everybody reads. I wonder what they would think. So I tried to think of a way that I could get my friends to read it, but Facebook didn't have a way to do that, and I just couldn't think of a way. So I Googled it and found out that you could self-publish on Amazon, not thinking self-publish as an author. Like, to me, I thought no one will look at it unless you tell them to look at it. Like, it didn't dawn on me that Amazon has millions of people, and if a book is available, they might look at it. I thought you would have to direct somebody to it. So I uploaded a rough draft of it. I didn't even really fully edit it or anything because I thought only my friends would see it. And then I said, hey, everybody, I published this book if you guys like, urban fiction type books. And people were like, oh, okay. And just my friends started doing it. And I guess that must have alerted other readers on Amazon. And before I knew it, like, strangers were reading it. And people were leaving reviews. And I'm like, wow, those aren't people I know. And then they started saying stuff about the editing. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I guess I need to try to make this better because people that aren't my friends are reading it. And that's kind of how it ended up taking off. People that I didn't know started giving it reviews and started raising on Amazon's top 100 list. And I mean, I was so proud and excited, but I was so green. So
Got you.
I had to study and Google things and research and figure out what to do. So then by the time my second book came along, at the prodding of other people who enjoyed Behind Closed Doors, I was like, all right, I have to be more methodical about this. So then I put way more thought into what the plot was going to be and what was my end game. And, I started character building and doing an outline. And so that's kind of how it works now, now. And actually, I have another book. I have one book that's coming out December 31st, but I have a book after that. And that book was because I saw a book cover that automatically gave me a thought for a story. And I said, oh, I need to write this story. And so I've kind of been writing two books at the same time because that story came to mind by that book cover. So I guess I don't have a specific writing process. It's just whatever I may think of a storyline, and I'm like, let me write that.
Okay, so the first one was 10 years in the making, and then, of course, since then you've kind of, taken off with how quickly between the writing and getting it out, because from I remember Liar's Ball came out pretty quick after, not too long after Behind Closed Door.
And yeah, it was like 2 years, which for me was astounding considering it took me 10 to do the first one. So Liar's Ball came out in August of 2014, and Behind Closed Doors was July of 2012. So it only took me 2 years for that one. And then When I'm Bad, I'm Better, that comes out December 31st, that will have only been a year and some months. So I'm getting better. My time is getting shorter.
Okay, so with the writing, are you doing your own self-editing? Did you hire out someone to do your copy editing? Like, what are you doing differently?
For Liar's Ball, I sent it out to a professional editor because after thinking that things were edited properly the first time, once I realized that there were editing issues, I just said, let me just give it to someone, to have them edited. However, that is extremely expensive. So I found an online way to make sure that things are edited properly. And so hopefully with this next release everything should be in good order.
Okay. So, and now who do you use as soundboards to kind of help flesh out your plot? Like where maybe you have an idea and, do you have your usual go-to people that read them in the early drafts and kind of give you that, that real feedback that helps you know that you're on the right path, or maybe you're going in the wrong direction? Or is it just, you're writing it, you're rereading it, you're rewriting it?
I've got two people that I go to, mostly just one. My husband, he reads a lot. So what I'll do when he'll say, what have you done today or whatever, and I'll just read it out loud to him, which also helps me with, how I want my characters to speak, realism, things like that. And then I get his feedback from what he got from that, what he heard, and, how he felt about that. And then I have another friend who is also an author, who I've let read a few chapters. But I think my main process is that I have a Kindle and I have an app, a Kindle Reader app on it. And because I don't have time to read with my eyes most of the time, anything leisurely, and I have an extremely long drive home, I'll transfer what I've written to my Kindle and then let my Kindle read it back to me, so that I can kind of hear how it comes off as if, if it was published, what would it sound like? And I catch errors that way or things that I don't like in the plot.
Okay, that's actually a very, very good idea. I mean, using the technology that we have, it lowers the barrier to entry, and it's an excellent technique. I mean, they always tell you in speech writing or any other type of writing that until you read it out loud, you're not going to catch the mistakes or the things that our brains automatically do the editing, and you don't even think about it. I mean, there's a reason why, when you see those posts on Facebook where all the letters are scrambled, you can still read the phrase, is because our brains are amazing, but when it comes to writing, they can betray us because we self-edit. You don't even think about it, whether it's spelling or double words or just things that just have an odd sound to them. We make the correction, and it's a wonderful thing to hear something out loud, and that's really where you can hear the voice or the thing that's missing. So that's actually a good tip, to actually take advantage of the Kindle Reader and how it actually will read it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, questions more specific to Behind Closed Doors and Liar's Ball, without giving away, any plot points or twists. I guess my big question is, when you finished the first book, did you know kind of the way it ended that it was going to lead to something else? I know you said initially you didn't even think you were going to have something else, but was there anything that you took out of the first book and put into the second book, or did it just, you were just like, all right, that's where it ended. This is what I'm going to do next. I want to expand on these characters, their world, because one thing I can say reading the books, it has a very distinct voice where each character, you know how sometimes you may read something and every character kind of sounds the same?
Yeah.
They have different names, they interact with each other, but sometimes you can't even tell from the conversation who said what.
Right, who said what.
So one thing I saw is that was, I thought that was very interesting. It's like I didn't even always have to know who was speaking, but I could tell, in the scene, because the characters were authentic and the conversations between the friends. We're of the same age. We grew up in the same era. So those conversations, I know what it's like kicking it with the fellas and having those conversations. And the way we talk to each other, it really rang true.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because, I consider myself a guy's girl. I have a lot of female friends, but I always hung out with a lot of guys too. And so, I heard a lot of those kind of conversations, and some of my guy friends kind of talk to me that way. We shoot the crap or whatever and say a lot of stuff. I don't want to use any profanity, but,
No, I get
some of those conversations I've heard,
Yeah, we can, when guys get together, we can, it's no filter. It's kind of like, if you get your feelings hurt easy, then you're probably hanging with the wrong crew.
Right.
And it's kind of
right,
like
because from my understanding, most of the time that's the fun in it, talking crap to the next guy and, trying to show that you're a bigger man than this guy, but it's all in fun, and every now and then it'll be one hater in there or one jealous guy in there. So, like to me, my favorite characters to write are the troubled ones, the ones that have anger management problems, the ones that say things that are outrageous, because to me, they bring spice. They bring spice to it, and a lot of times humor, and even though you're like, I can't believe they said that, oh, they're crazy or whatever, they're the most entertaining of all the characters that I write about. When people have talked about them, I hear all kinds of things that, I love to hear, but they all love to hate Brian.
Well, the way I see it is, I mean, Brian is, he's egotistical. He thinks he's better than everyone. He thinks his stuff doesn't stink. But the good thing about a character like that is there's more room for growth in a character like that.
Right.
Everyone that's a paragon of justice, or they always say the right thing and do the right thing. Well, where are you going to go with them? There's no conflict.
Right.
Where someone like Brian, and to an extent, his sister, if they were perfect people, there would be no growth. There would be, there would be no journey between the beginning of the book. I mean, I look at Brenda, where she started in the first book to where she ended up, up through the epilogue in the second book. That's a huge journey for someone to go through. And everything they went through, and I'm telling everyone.
Even Brian made some changes. I mean, you see a bit of a change, and why? Because to me, everybody is not one dimensional. Everyone has a reason why they are who they are.
So that being said, are you ever gonna come back and revisit those characters, or?
I might. Okay. I might. I don't have any plans in the near future, only because this next book that I'm releasing is probably going to be a series itself, and then I have another book that is going to come out soon. So I have some books lined up in mind, but it's definitely a possibility, because those characters are kind of what grew my fan base and gave me the passion to write more and actually want to be an author as opposed to just a writer.
Okay. Well, the good thing is, like you said, if they're all taking place in the same city, people can always visit and kind of walk through the scene in another book.
I will do that too, because you know what? I read all genres. I've always been a big fan of Stephen King, and Stephen King has a tendency to have his characters in multiple books. So you'll read one book and then you'll be like, Sheriff Pangborn, oh, he was in It, and this one was in Needful Things. And, and to me as a reader, that's always kind of fun when you have an author whose works you read and you can recognize a character from another book. It's just something that connects you more with that author to me. So
yeah, you're absolutely
there will
right.
definitely be some appearances from characters over different books.
No, that's good to know, because you're right. It's kind of like you feel like you're an insider when you whether it's a place or a person or something that you absolutely, and it may have been from 10 books ago, and then suddenly it's like revisiting an old friend, or even when it happens on a show, and you see someone and it's the same character, and it's it's like coming home again to an old friend, and you feel like you're part of the family. It's that insider that you feel connected, like exactly like you said, you feel connected to the author when that happens, and you almost feel like it's a love letter from the author to their fans.
Right. It's like as a fan, you're like, oh yeah, that's so and so from so and so, and then if they come out with another book with those characters, it all can link up, and I love reading other authors who do that too. Just makes me want to read more of their series.
Excellent. Now, what are you reading these days? I mean, do you even have time, between the writing and these next two books that you're working that you are basically finished? Do you even have time to read other things still?
I do, but like I said, I use my Kindle Reader.
Okay.
So I don't eyeball read anything anymore. I do a lot of listening. So I either listen to Audible books, or I have them transferred over on Kindle so that it can read it out loud to me.
Okay. I mean, that's still another way to consume literature and
novels. I go through maybe 5 books a week.
Okay. So you're still
because I do them on my drive.
Yeah, you're still doing that listening reading, and it's active. You have to actively listen. So so that's just still another way to get that that energy that you get from books. That
exactly. I don't do it while I'm like right now. I'm in the process of writing, so I take time whenever I'm actually writing. I don't listen to anything during that period because it clouds me. But what I'm reading right now, or what I actually just finished reading, was Grand Opening, Carl Weber, and
Okay.
it was a part of the Family Business series that he has. He's one of my favorite authors. He's also from Queens.
Okay, excellent. And so, with the reading, with the writing, what do you do when you get writer's block? Do you have techniques that you have? Like for me, I've always I have to do two things at once. That's kind of my way to free up my mind. I Do you have a technique? Do you have a certain routine? Do you have your writing space, or how do you get through that?
I think I write better in certain spaces, but if I feel like I have a block, a lot of times just looking at a really good movie or just listening to more books will inspire me to do something. Even listening to terrible books, because there have been some that I've listened to and I'm like, oh, this is not good, or it's terrible, but it still inspires me to say, okay, this is what I'm definitely not going to do, or oh, I need to do this. Or if I read a really good book, I'm like, wow, the way they developed that character, and that inspires me to do mine that way. I don't copy anything they've done, but the techniques are what I'm listening to, like how in depth a character may be, to the fact where because for me, my goal is to make the reader visualize what they're reading as though it's a movie in their mind. And I really appreciate that when I'm reading, because to me, reading should be an escape. It's a movie for you. It's like if you're deaf, that's going to be your movie through your eyes.
Well, one thing I can say, and I'm thankful, and I'm saying it to you, as a reader, a lot of times, or sometimes in a book, yeah, there'll be a lot of characters, there'll be intersecting plots, but there'll be a lot of extra that's unnecessary, and it almost feels like filler, and for a reader, it's like a waste of time. It's like a scene in a movie that has nothing to do, doesn't move the plot forward. What I saw in the first book, and even more in the second book, is the pacing, and you didn't introduce anything extraneous that was unnecessary. Everything was related, and if you introduced something, there was some sort of payoff later, whether it was a character interaction, whether it was a minor or major character. Everything kept the plot moving. There was nothing, I never felt like, oh well, this is a chapter I can skip, because there's certain books or movies you watch or books you read where you're like, well, I could have skipped that. That didn't add anything. That just wasted my time. So as a reader, I can say, thank you for that, because pacing is so important, to how much you're going to enjoy a book, good or bad. Even if you hate some of the characters, like some of the characters, it's the efficiency of the writing and the way the story moves along, where it's like, you know what, you're reading this, I'm telling you a story, I'm going to bring you along in the story, and I'm not going to have you going back and go, okay, wait, I don't even remember who this person is. So there's no surprises in the sense of, well, suddenly somebody shows up that you've never seen before. It's like the old trick they would do in plays where, they're stuck, and then, suddenly the Deus Machina, where suddenly the machine of the god would show up and rescue everything. And you're like, well, where did that come from? They just invented something that didn't exist. So it's like the oldest thing they teach us, whether it's in school or writing or in film, they tell you, well, if you're going to show it, you're going to use it. So don't waste people's time. And, that's important. And I can say as a fan, as a reader, that's a good thing. And keep doing that, because
that's good to know helps. Because, I'm very analytical when it comes to movies. I love it, or in books too. I'm always paying attention to the storyline, and that's what makes me love it. And I can't stand to watch a movie and, like you said, have something happen, and you're like, well, they didn't even explain that, or why they do that, or something seems rushed, where it seems like the whole movie was really great, and then at the very end, they just threw something in there, and you're like, well, what happened? And because it affects how good you thought that movie was when they mess it up at the end, or when they insert these characters, and you're like, okay, because for example, was that The Perfect Guy, that movie that just came out recently with Michael Ealy?
Okay.
everybody was going to see that, us women going for the eye candy and, stuff like that. And it was a decent movie, but they threw out certain things in the plot and then they never expounded on it. And you're like, well, why did you tell me that? Like, what what did I need to know that for?
it's the problem that probably happens more often in television, where they introduce characters and there's no payoff. It's the whole thing like with Lost, where they went down certain roads and then at the end you're like, okay, wait a minute, that's it.
Right. It's like, was this a dream? Was it live? And that is what I don't want to do, because I don't like the feeling myself, and because I know that I'm an analytical person. And like I said, that's why I have it read it back to me, because I want to feel like I enjoyed it. What I've done months later, I'll go back and have it read like behind closed doors to me or something. Because when I first published Behind Closed Doors, I didn't have the reader.
Okay.
And so because I hadn't read it in such a while, although obviously I knew what was going to happen, it was like reading it for the first time. I even laughed myself at certain things where I almost pat myself on the back, like, that was funny, because it was new to me for a minute, because I don't remember every word, and that is what I want. I want the reader to be entertained. I want you to be surprised at certain things. I don't like predictability. I mean, some things obviously you'll be able to, see where the storyline is going, but I love the element of surprise or a twist that keeps you coming back for more, that keeps you wanting to see what's going to happen in the next chapter.
Well, that's, you hit all the right, buttons, and, I really couldn't put down the second one even more than the first one, because I knew these characters now, and I kind of got into the groove. It's like I kind of knew their voice and knew more about what to expect from them, but I was like, all right, what are these fools going to get into next? What foolishness is about to pop off? And it's because of events in the first book, I knew that, there were no holds barred. Anything could happen. So
right.
that's kind of for me. I've always been the person that's been into sequels because of that. Because what you find in a sequel is, because the author doesn't have to take that time again to really introduce the characters already exist, and you're just kind of expanding on it. And then in that sense, the plots tend to be a little bit richer. They flow a lot better. I mean, it's the old Godfather 2 scenario where you knew who these people were, but they found a way to expand this world and make it even more rich. And that's because that's why I love series, because, you get to know the characters in the first book, and then in the second one, you get to meet some new people, but it's like coming home again to your friends that you knew, and you're like, I want to see how they're going to get through this. I kind of know how they react to things, but maybe they may react a little bit different. Maybe they've changed enough here that you're hoping, like for me, as I was reading the books, I was hoping Brian would make different choices at different times.
Right.
And I was like, well, maybe, and and the relationship with him and his sister, sometimes you just felt, or you're, with their mother, or, different family members or different friends, you kind of wanted to pull them in a certain direction. It's like, come on, I know you can be a better person.
I know you can be better.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh man. And then you're like, well, I knew it. I knew that's what they was going to do. So it's like watching a good TV show or watching a good movie. And for me, as, I read everything. Like you said, you like all types of things. I watch all type of movies. I read all types of things. And one thing I could say from reading your books, and, it drives me to finally stop just rewriting and editing everything. I probably have 3 books complete, but I'm too much of it's like, and I know you've probably gone through this, because with the first one you said for 10 years, and it's because they become your baby, and it's kind of hard to let it go into the world. And as you're writing, and that people tell you this all the time, and, I don't know if this helped you through the second, third, and fourth books, is if you just keep writing and don't stop until you go back later and do the editing. I always have made the mistake of editing as I write.
You know what? I still do that. And
Yeah.
and you're right though. I have been told that, and I am so sure that they're right. However, I feel like I can't move forward if I haven't completed this chapter the way I needed to. I feel like
Gotcha.
it's going to cause a gap. And I don't want to keep writing and then I'm like, oh wait, I need to change this, and then I have to go all the way back. So
Well,
that's another thing. I mean, to be honest, even releasing this next book on December 31st, I'm really nervous because it's the first of a new series. These are
Okay.
characters that everybody doesn't know, and so I am worried. I'm excited, but you never know what your critics may say. They may have liked the other ones, but now they're like, well, I don't know, this one's a little different, and these are different people, and you never know how it's going to be received. So I think I'm probably more self-critical of this one. I've nitpicked everything all through it, because I'm not as green as I was the first time where I was just writing just for me. Now I know that there are eyes on this. Now I know that there are people with expectations. I have a cousin who has a book club meeting set up in February already.
Nice. That's no, and thinking about that, how have you taken advantage of things like Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, to push your books, to communicate with fans, to communicate with people that are giving you comments? Like, how have you taken
I'm on
advantage
all of them because I actually enjoy feedback. I actually wish that people would give me more. I wish they would talk more. I wish they would make more reviews. I mean, I'll have 70 or so reviews, but, looking at the sales, I know that there's been thousands of sales, but, everybody doesn't write a review. Um, Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. You never know. Maybe they didn't like it. That's why they didn't review. Or maybe they just felt like, oh, it's good. What? I don't have to write a review. So communicating, Twitter, Goodreads, Facebook, whatever. I have all of those pages. I have a Twitter page. I have a Facebook page, a fan page. I'm on everything.
it?
I do book giveaways.
That's right. So your website is kfjohnsonbooks.com.
Right.
And on Twitter, you're KF Johnson Books.
Right.
Facebook, KF Johnson Author. And you also have your blog at KF Johnson on WordPress.
Right.
And for everyone that's interested, if you go to kfjohnsonbooks.com, there's a sneak peek for the new release. So for When I'm Bad, I'm Better, which is coming out on December 31st. And I believe it's the first 4 chapters.
Yes, the first 4 chapters, because there are 4 main characters. So this was a large undertaking for me because I'm used to the 2. But this one focuses on 4 cousins. And everything starts out good in most people's lives, but sometimes things change, and sometimes when you're bad, you're better.
Well, I can say I'm looking forward to it, and I'm telling everyone out there, go out to Amazon. If you haven't checked out the first books, definitely.
Yes, it is available for pre-sale right now, for pre-order. So there have been a lot. Actually, I was looking at my pre-order sales and I was impressed because I was like, it's actually the pre-order sales have sold so much. I have no choice but to make sure this book comes out on time. Amazon sent out an email I got the other day. I was looking, I thought they were, asking me something about the book, and then I saw it was a mass email that they sent out advertising it. I was like, oh, wow.
Nice.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to continue to tell the listeners to the Multifarious Man podcast on my blog, on my Twitter. I'm definitely going to get the word out.
Thank you.
So for everyone that's listening to this interview now, the book is coming out December 31st.
Right.
And the links to all of KF Johnson's sites and media are going to be in the show notes.
Yes, and there are book trailers. If you go to my website, you will have access to everything. There are links to my Facebook, to Goodreads, to Twitter. There are book trailers. There are old books, new books. I love to link up with any readers. I love to see what people think and get some feedback and, just chat.
Well, I mean, thank you so very much. This has been a very interesting interview. I've learned a lot. I'm probably even more excited for the new book coming out now.
Thank you so much.
To read it. And again, like I said, as a fan, I really did enjoy these two books. Anyone that loves a good story with friends, with romance, it's sexy, it's exciting, it's dangerous, and the characters in these books, you probably know a few people just like this, or you may be these people. So I definitely recommend them.
I definitely will say that I have had friends asking me, did you get this person from that person? Or did you think, they think that they know these people, or that we know these people. They think I pulled them from college or friendships. And it's really flattering that they think that I wrote the characters so well that they can actually see a person they know in it.
Well, that means that, the characters are fully dimensional. They're just not caricatures. They're actually real people. And I think that's the best part of good writing, when the characters jump off the page and you actually can imagine them in different scenarios and not just what's happening. So again, thank you so very much. Again, author K.F. Johnson, definitely check out her books, Liar's Ball and Behind Closed Doors, and coming out December 31st, When I'm Bad, I'm Better. You can check her out on kfjohnsonbooks.com, and there's links to her Twitter, her Facebook, Goodreads, and go to Amazon now and pre-order the book so you'll get it, with that quick delivery, or if you have your Kindle, you can get it that same day. You know how Amazon likes to ship stuff out, so if you get the physical book, it'll actually show up on your door on the 31st. So take advantage of it, get out there now, and again, reach out to author K.F. Johnson, give her feedback. Like she said, she'd love to hear from people out there, and that's it. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish up?
No, I'd just like to say thank you so much for having me on. Any opportunity to promote and to, reach out to my readers, I really, appreciate that, because there are thousands of authors out there who no one gets to read their books and knows that they're out there, unbeknownst to me before I published. So I'm really grateful for, any sounding board for my work.
Well, thank you again so much. And there you have it, the interview with author K.F. Johnson. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the stories and learning a little bit about her craft, how she writes, how she edits, how she comes up with ideas, along with some thoughts about future books. I really enjoyed the time I had with her. And again, she's definitely going to be invited back to the show. But go out, read the books, pre-order the new book. And, send me a note. Let me know what you think. She really loves to get feedback from people that read her books, good or bad. She reads, all the comments and notes that you send. So definitely reach out to her. Again, she is on Twitter at KF Johnson Books, and her website is kfjohnsonbooks.com. On Facebook, KF Johnson Author, and on WordPress, kfjohnson.wordpress.com. You can order her books through Amazon today. You can get the digital version for your Kindle, or you can actually get the paperback. I definitely recommend checking it out. I really enjoyed the books. So as a fan, as I told you, I enjoyed them, and I would definitely recommend them to anyone. If you're into urban fiction, romance, the books have some very mature subject matter, but, if you're already, an avid reader, you can't go wrong by checking these books out. She really knows the voice of her characters, and, their actions and their growth or lack of growth, they definitely ring true. So again, I'd like to thank author K.F. Johnson for joining us on today's show, and I hope you enjoyed her visit as much as I did. So thank you again for tuning in to the Multifarious Man podcast. And as I always say, why be various when you can be multifarious? I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful New Year's. Be safe out there. If you're going to, enjoy the revelry and the drinking, remember, don't drink and drive. It's better off to plan ahead. Uber, use a taxi cab, designated driver. Definitely want everyone to enjoy the time with their family, but really be safe out there. You want to get home. So enjoy the new year. It's been a wonderful ride so far these first couple of months, and I look forward to having many more shows, many more interviews in the new year. So again, this is the Multifarious Man, and I'm out. Peace.
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dean Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand, I'm the Multifarious Man.